Do you know what time it is? It's Roboguide time. Hey, how's it going? So far, we've had you watch the first two modules, and you should have uh, built the first robot that the last presenter, Tim, told you to choose. So if you completely ignore that, you get to go back and build that robot just like how we said. So we need this exact same model. He also had the pointer on the end. And so if you don't have the pointer, you've got that great big uh, goofy flange thing on the end, you can still get that from here. We can have you go back in and drill in underneath that robot under tooling, click on that the first tooling pointer. If I right click on that, I can still get there going to this tooling library, and that should still be able to find you that pointer. Okay, there's some other cool things in here too. If you wanted to, make a welding robot or some other, different types of things, or a gripper like what we have in class, things like that. We're going to use a pointer for our first couple of things, and we're going to hit okie dokie. So we have that. The next thing we're going to do here is make sure your computer is set up, and making sure you can see all the little tiny blue little OK things on the bottom of your screen. When I'm working in my office doing this, I've got the two great big computer screens to be able to have a nice workflow. You're on a little tiny laptop, so what we'll need to have you do here, so you can maximize your opportunity here. If you can type in the word display, display, find that display setting for me. Go to display settings, and then I scroll down. Make sure you're on that 100%. Most of our laptops are set at either 125 or 150%, and they're really zoomed in. And when we do that, we can't fit a whole lot on our screen or see the bottoms of menus and hit enter, and it's frustrating. So we'll do that, and your screen might kind of black out for a second, come back, and poof, it's going to look better. All right. The next thing we're going to do once we've got that series of robot on our screen, we're going to lock it into place. What's going to happen right now is it's not bolted to the ground, and so theoretically we could go through. If we wanted to, we could. You can accidentally hit it and basically knock it over. Just kind of like if you're taking go up to it and kind of push it and knock it over. We're going to bolt this to the ground. And so we have this as far as our X, our Y, and our Z axis is showing here on the base of the robot. I'm going to kind of hover over that and double click that. Try it again. There it goes. So once I double click on that, I'll make my screen a little bit bigger here. Just double check to make sure all of your axes for your robot are all reading 0. If you're playing around with it a little bit, these numbers could be off, or if you already did knock the gosh darn thing over, it doesn't take too much for it, and so I can put it down inside of the ground, or spin it usually on that Y once that someone does. Like, I'm crashing, not a good thing. So when I do that, these numbers are all kind of defunct. Go back in, just make sure they'll all read 0. And so once we have that, I can hit apply, and it should go back. And what we'll do here is once I'm all at 0, I'm going to lock all location values just so this thing doesn't tip over off the concrete here. And then I'll hit apply, and I should hit OK. And when I do that, we'll see that as far as our X, Y, and Z, I now see that's red there. And on my check off of when we're done with your modules, one of the things that I'm looking for points is making sure that's locked in and red. So if you haven't done that, gosh darn, go ahead and do that. The next thing we're going to do to set you up for success, I'm going to kind of make my screen a little bit bigger, is I'm going to go through and make sure I've got a mouse. I'm using a mouse. So if you don't have a mouse hooked up, go around, find one, put it back when you're done. There's things on this mouse that we can't do with the keypad. just for in terms of dragging long distances. I can't do that on that little tiny thing. The little rolly ball thing, but we're using that a lot too for things. So make sure you got a mouse hooked in too. All right, and so what I'm going to do here with that rolly ball, I can kind of zoom in and zoom out with this. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom out to about here. And we've learned the earlier module, if I wanted to go through, if I spin things around, I can do that. I want to get a good, a good view from like this perspective here. If things start moving around, I can, like we said, kind of go back to recentering my object. What we're going to do here is we're going to do a multi-view display, so I can see this thing from 4 different angles. And so we're going to have you set up your screen here for points. We're going to have you hover over the window option, go to 3D panes, and we're going to do a multi-pane right. When I do that, I see the same thing on my screen how many times? Not 6 or 7, 4. What I'm going to do here is right now, I've got this yellow kind of outline on my biggest window. That's my current view that I'm in. I can click on those other ones, and then the yellow box goes to the others. So we're going to keep my main screen from this angle. I can go through here, and when we look at those different views, we're going to have one go to a top view. I can use that rolly ball to kind of scroll in a little bit. I'm going to click on my middle one here. Go through and choose either a left or a right view. We'll do a left, I guess. Okay, it's kind of going forward and backward. What I'm doing here, I have both my left and my right fingers down on my mouse, and I'm basically kind of zooming in and out. And so I can kind of, if I need to go back and recenter things a little bit, I can do that. If I want it nice and big like this, that looks pretty good. And my last screen here, I'm going to go on over, and let's do a front view. I'm going to take this, kind of go over the top of this, hold both parts of my mouse down, make it bigger, smaller, maybe make it a little bit bigger. Go back, and I'm just going to recenter that with that four-sided arrow with the center of the view on the selected object thing that you see underneath the word view. And so I've got those 4 different views. Awesome. Once you have your screen looking just like this, this is going to be where we cut off this module. Bring me your computer and bring me your checkoff sheet, and we will say that module number 3 is complete. Good job.